All right. As people are starting to come in, we'll give a little bit. We do have some intro stuff to do. So first off, hello and welcome. This is the first of these community updates. A few things to talk about first before we bring our speakers up here. You can see chats already lighting up, and that's the first thing I want to mention. YouTube chat is going to be visible to the speakers, obviously to each other. I can't stress this enough. Please use it. I love this. My previous projects I've been on, we ended up getting into this hello from where you're from thing, and I see it going on now. Munich, New York, Singapore, which is always very cool. London, I love seeing where people's from. I think it's really neat, especially during COVID, to just realize how, like, as much as I'm into technology and have done this, it's still kind of bonkers to me that I'm live speaking to Singapore and London. It's always very cool to me. So by all means, say hi in chat, but also feel free to talk to each other in chat. This is ultimately for the community. This is an open source project. This is going to give us this opportunity to let people talk to each other, ask questions to our speakers. So let me do a quick intro for myself because I haven't done anything yet really too visibly. My name is Jason Dobies. I joined Google back in January, so relatively new, and started on the Bazel project a few weeks later. I just got a bit thrown off because it only now dawned on me that the L in Google is the exact shade of green as my green screen. So we're going to have to figure this out in the future. Maybe we're like the nice white screen here. So Redmond, very cool. London again, California. I'm hoping that picks up. I do kind of see it too over on mine. I'm going to assume this is just a brief kind of hiccup with the streaming software, and we will hopefully get that resolved in a second. But I do see me kind of very, very pixelated there. So yeah, I'm a developer relations engineer working on Bazel. Like I said, I'm new to Google. Prior to this, I spent 15 years at Red Hat. So I have experience in open source that I know doesn't 100% apply to how we do things here, but I definitely have my opinions, and I've worked in these types of communities before. And I think it's really cool being able to do these kind of live stream events. Looking forward to conferences when I get to meet people in person again. So yeah, worked at Red Hat the last 5 years or so were developer relations. Previous to that, it was about 10 years of engineering. So I am a nerd at heart, despite having this particular role. So what do I want to accomplish with these streams? I think the first thing to say is that it's going to be very fluid. It's not going to be, as you can see, it's not terribly polished, as you can see through my L over here. But it's meant to be just very educational, very conversational. So we will play with the format. We will play with the time. We will play with the kind of people that are on, just trying to see what works best. Because first and foremost, we've, as Google, have had a bit of a visibility issue with Bazel. We haven't been particularly good about having this kind of outward communication. And I think this is going to be a great avenue for it. It's going to give people this chance to ask questions. It's going to give us a chance to actually present outward things going on. And like I said, just discussion. I do see some stuff going on in chat. Like I said, by all means, keep that going. For today, we have a bit of a grab bag of different ideas. So I could see this evolving into everything from deep technical dives to getting the rules SIG on here to talk about what they're doing. Today is going to be a mix of some roadmap discussion, some upcoming release discussion, and we'll get into some details of that. But for now, I'm going to bring the speakers on stage with us. Let them do a brief introduction. So we'll start with Radhika. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Radhika. I'm the product manager at Bazel. My goal is really to engage with the community with Jason and really understand how Bazel adds value and how can we improve it and basically service everything you guys are asking for. Not everything, but whatever we can in a really good way. Um, Essentially, I would love to meet champions of Google and champions of Bazel and make it a fun tool to use for your builds. I've been at Google all of 2 weeks, and today is literally my 2 weeks and fourth day. So I have a lot to learn from all of you, and it's going to be a fun ride.
It is. Thank you. And that's I intentionally introduced you first because with me being here for 3 months in this DevRel role, you being here for 2 weeks in the PM role, to kind of set the stage that this is where growing. We're still adapting to things, so it's going to take a little bit to figure out what completely works and what doesn't. But to help with that experience, we're going to bring Sven on stage because he's been here just a tad longer than 3 months. So Sven, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Sven. I'm the manager of the Bazel team in Munich. I joined the Bazel team 11 years ago when I joined Google. I worked most of the time during these 11 years not on the Bazel team though, so I moved through different kind of projects and returned 2 years ago during the pandemic. So most of my community experiences are virtual Bazel cons. I love this new series. So I'm really curious how this will evolve over time. But I'd be also like thrilled to see some of the community folks eventually in person somewhere. I spent most of my time in the past 2 years on the Bazel project. Our teams are carrying both of the internal build, like the tool called Place that you might have heard about, and about the open source, the public product Bazel. And this is my has been my personal focus over the past years and will continue to be so.
Awesome. Thank you, Sven. And Tony.
Let's unmute. Yes, hi, Tony Ayudo here in New York. I'm one of the managers in the group here. A lot of you know me because I've been involved with Bazel for a bunch of years now and probably using the predecessor Blaze since it almost began 14 or 15 years ago at Google. And wore a variety of hats in the Blaze team here and had been doing a lot of speaking with developers on various things. I'm so happy to have Jason and Radhika join us to take some of that load off and do a better job than I ever could.
Oh, that part's a little bit optimistic, but yes, in terms of taking the load off, happy to help out on that one. All right, cool. Let's get started. I'm going to attempt to share the slides. I do still see my video is acting particularly funny for some reason, but it does look like the slides are coming through okay. So just let me know in chat if we need to have someone else come up and share those slides. Give me 1 second. Okay, not quite sure what that was. So the obvious disclaimer as we talk about roadmap stuff, we are not committing to anything. This is our goals. Please do not attempt to hold this against us as, oh, Jay said during the live stream that we were going to guarantee we have this in 2 weeks. As everybody in engineering knows, that stuff is all very, very fuzzy. But we do want to give an idea of the priorities, the kind of things we're working on, and get some feedback on what the community needs. So disclaimer out of the way. Don't remember who is actually starting off with this, Radhika or Sven?
I think I can take this. So first of all, the next release is coming, and the next release that we're working on, and those who are following us on GitHub will probably be aware of that, is Bazel 5.2, which is a so-called minor release. And to give a little bit of context for those who are not super familiar with the release model of Bazel, and also the question, what's in which release to begin with? So we have major and minor releases. Major releases are time-driven. We're planning to release them every 9 months. The first major release we followed this release schedule was 5.0, followed by, no, 4.0 followed by 5.0. I think earlier this year. And in between these 9 months, we're releasing minor releases. Minor releases happen between the major releases. We're aiming for, I think in the past, we had 2 to 3 minor releases in this time range of 9 months. So we don't have a fixed schedule for it, but every 2 to 3 months is a good way of looking at minor releases. Now, what's in minor releases? We're picking changes from the main branch into these releases. In most cases, those are bug fixes and regressions. Like if something is breaking, we try to fix it and have a minor release fixing this. if I'm looking at the original announcement that you'll find on the Bazel blog, we said that we want to include critical bug fixes. I'm just reading the quote, but no new features over these 9 months. So in principle, minor releases are supposed to carry bug fixes. We haven't been super strict about that. Essentially, for all minor releases that we did so far, users, community members suggested and requested changes. And the main criterion that we apply to these is they need to be backward compatible. So within a major release stream, which is 5.0, 5.1, 5.2, and so on, all releases should be backward compatible and never breaking your build. This is the main rule. So we will never pick fixes. No, we will never pick features, most of all, which break backward compatibility. And so far, we have been pretty open in accepting requests of adding functionality to a minor release. But to be clear, we don't want to say yes to everything. Most of the bigger changes will stay at head in the main branch and be part of the next major release. So what's in 5.2? It mostly contains fixes for Android support. Some examples here: Apple fixes, C++ and Java fixes, or for example, improvements in the area of remote execution. There, one example is that we just upgraded a quite outdated version of Google Auth to a more recent version. So this kind of functionality gets into a minor release, and we have here some sample examples for improvements which are part of 5.2, which is in the making.
All right. Anything else from the rest of the panel? Tony, you look like you're deep in thought. Not to put you on the spot there, but okay, we'll keep moving. Okay, next up. So that was our, as Sven mentioned, the point release. Everyone is a little more interested in the next major release. Yeah, I hear the pings too. Sven, do you have some kind of speaker going on that might be picking up pings or something like that while you're speaking?
Every time a chat
yes.
comes through, so you hear a ding on multiple speakers. That's why it sounds like a ding echoing.
That was probably Google Chat telling me, hey, Sven, don't say stupid things, please. You make us look embarrassing also. I closed the chat window.
Okay, that's smart, because as soon as you acknowledge that, you just get a whole bunch of people just trying to troll you on that. So
Exactly.
All right,
It's
so exactly. Okay, 6.0.
6.0, right, that's the next major release. Scheduled for Q3. I would have to look up the exact target date.
Actually, I'm going to stop you right now. Don't never say exact target dates of this kind of thing, because it's recorded and it will absolutely come back to bite us. So
yeah. So 5.0 has been released, I believe, in January this year. So end of Q3-ish should be the date range where, or the time range where we will aim to release it. Usually before a major release is scheduled for release, we will also announce the date for the cutoff, like when cutting the first the release branch, essentially. So contributors, community members will get a heads up in time before the process of actually preparing the release will start. This is a preview. There will be a lot of stuff in there, and I hope that future sessions will have opportunity to shed more light on this. It's on the one side, notably, we will launch Bzlmod. Jason, is it Bzlmod or Bzlmod?
You're asking me. I've been here 3 months. I've always heard, I feel like Yoon said Bzlmod, and I kind of looking at him as the source of truth, and I know I'm going to get called out for screwing that up, but let's say I don't actually care.
I think it's the engineers. Sorry, Tony.
It's Bzlmod.
Bazel.
No,
All right.
yeah, who knows?
So I heard engineers referring to it as BZL. Thank you, Shadon, one of the engineers on the project, Bzlmod. There is also the embarrassing moment during BazelCon last year. I referred to Bzlmod as Bazelmod, followed by a recorded talk where the people who knew better referred to it as Bzlmod. I would just claim that both works. Bzlmod is the code name of our new external dependency system, and it got launched, so you can already use it with Bazel 5.0 hidden behind the flag. So you need to manually activate it, and there's quite some development time behind it. So we started probably more than 1 year ago to work on it. The initial intention was to have a separate tool, not part of the Bazel binary. But quite a while into the project, the team figured out that this is not the best idea, and so it got included into the Bazel binary. It's if you use Bazel 5.0, you already have it on your machine. So Bzlmod replaces essentially the concept of depending on repositories by dependencies on better defined and better maintained so-called modules. A module is a Bazel project. It can release multiple versions. It will be published or has to be published in a very structured way with a lot of metadata into a repository which we call Bazel Central Registry. It's a repository in our GitHub org. And if you think about Bzlmod, you can, and these modules, you can think about Maven artifacts or npm packages, something like that. Bzlmod solves a couple of problems, high-level problems. The one is you will have all your direct dependencies defined in a separate file in module.bazel. Unlike the old approach where you also had to define transitive dependencies, for example. Bzlmod during build time resolves the dependency graph, selects, does a lot of smartness in selecting the most recent version. If multiple dependencies depend on, like if you have this diamond problem where direct dependencies depend on a transitive dependency, which is the same, but maybe in different versions. So we tried to figure out which version to use. There are a lot of details, also recorded talks about this. And we also will offer a standardized way to publish Bazel-based open source modules to this central registry in order to make them reusable. If you're interested in details, I don't know how to post a video link here, but there's even a nice YouTube recording from the last BazelCon by Yoon and Shudong. It's called Bzlmod, Bazel's new external dependency system, which gives you a 15-minute crash course on what Bzlmod is about, and also some of the future outlook. Talking about future outlook, we want to officially launch it with 6.0. Right, with 6.0, it can be used without using flag. There will be a couple of features included. Currently, some of the rule authors are already starting to adopt Bzlmod with 5.0 track in order to be ready for 6.0. We're talking to community members to hopefully be able to onboard more rule contributors to this. The 6.0 release will contain features and fixes based on feedback that we're getting during this initial adoption phase. We're working on migration guides, tooling, dependency graph injection. We supporting rules JVM external, which is important if you have dependencies to Maven, for example. And so we're looking for the MVP for this initial release of Bzlmod. And then we have ideas for future work, like, I don't know, think of offline builds and stuff like that might eventually be on our roadmap.
All right, we got a question. I just dropped it in there. Do you know enough, or should I push this to chat for you and to talk about?
I can read out what Shudong said. My point is that not everything which is at head is probably picked into 5.2. So the main development is at head. It's part of the rolling releases, or if you build Bazel from source. So in 5.2, most of the work is going on in 6.x or pre.
Awesome, thank you. More questions, feel free to chime in. Anything else on this, Sven, or should we move on?
If there are others on the team who are more qualified to go more into detail with Bzlmod, I'm already proud that I learned how to pronounce it correctly.
Yeah, that was definitely the takeaway there. So live stream justified. I'm putting that on my perf report. Cool. We'll move on past this. I don't expect it to want to spend too much time in this because, like I said, we're going to do a deeper dive into it. So let's keep going to the Android stuff.
Very quick on that one, also on Outlook. So we've revamped our efforts on Android. More people working on it, actually. And I think the two things to highlight was to mention for 6.0. One is pretty specific, that we're trying to improve the developer experience by updating the Android tools in our rules. One of the most asked for examples is the 8 support, which has been part of Bazel for a while, but we're now having like the default out-of-the-box support for the more recent version of the 8, as opposed to a very outdated one. And we're looking into supporting R8 as well. This is a little bit, there's more uncertainty to it, because this depends on a lot of pre-work which needs to happen over the next month. And if we slip the end of Q3 date, it would not be in 6.0. But the point is, through various channels, we get a lot of feedback about requests in this area, and we started looking into it. And also related to it, we're looking into merging more of the PRs, which are on the backlog, and all of this community contribution will then also be part of 6.0 eventually.
Cool. That's a good pausing point. We'll pause on the PR merging stuff. I think we're going to come back to that if we have time at the end of this, which is looking pretty solid, like we will. All right, tool chains. Tony?
Sure. Am I coming through?
Yeah, very clear.
Yeah, so we've recently added the capability to have an optional tool chain, and that mostly applies to rule writers. You could do something like decide a tool chain is optional, and if it is not available, if we can't resolve to anything, then the rule can take its own action. So you could imagine you want to build a signed binary. So you have a set of signing tool chains for signing on a Mac, signing on Windows, or a fallback tool chain to just signing something with GPG. And your application could say, well, I can't get the Mac one, so I'll just sign with GPG instead. So your rules can be more flexible that way instead of failing hard. Or if you really have to fail, you can choose to do that. So that's coming. And since the next one is mine, we're talking about license attestation. One of the things we're going to be doing for 6.0 is finally moving to a new set of rules to specify open source licenses. And it won't really impact the users of Bazel so much, or the way you do anything today. It will just get us closer to to showing the path for being able to use Bazel to eventually produce SBOMs for your code, which is going to be a super important thing for all of you in doing compliance audits as the world gets more serious about this. And that's for the author of the optional toolchains bit. The custom error messages. And that is super helpful to the users. So back to Jason.
Awesome. We'll basically wrap up this slide. I will keep an eye on questions and things like that if thoughts still come up. This is, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, obviously not the comprehensive list of things going in. There are, Sven, I believe you said this earlier, it's very hard to listen and kind of admin all of this stuff, so apologies on how you repeat yourself. But you said the LTS releases are ballpark. Wayne, I had the same thing about the SBOMs. I actually kind of laughed myself when he said it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to skip that one, but I'm glad someone caught it. Every 9 months for the LTSs, right? Roughly, Sven?
Roughly, right. This is
okay.
This is our plans. And what I forgot to mention is that with the LTS, and we still have to see how this then turns out in reality, to be very open, is like we want to support LTS versions after these initial 9 months where they receive minor updates with cherry picks. For critical bug fixes. Think of security bug fixes or platform changes, right? So just imagine Apple introduces a new chipset, a new processor or architecture that we need to support in LTS. That would be a candidate where we would have to think hard about how to update old LTS versions as well. So I'm pretty happy that the M1 change happened before. While we had only one LTS version out there. So the intention of this is to provide more stability and reliability, that you could stick to a specific Bazel release for a while before you have to upgrade and also adopt your build. That's the idea.
Awesome. I forget where I was going with mentioning that. Oh, so okay, the idea that there's obviously more that will land. Again, I'm going to reiterate from the beginning. Myself and Radhika are new, so we're still kind of getting a lot of this stuff in place, being able to do these more comprehensive roadmap type discussions, these more comprehensive planning discussions. You guys are killing me in chat right now. This is actually the fun of this kind of live stream, though, like keeping an eye on chat. I get distracted. So over time, we'll be able to have a little more kind of forward sight on what's coming next. Okay. One other note, Radhika, do you want to talk about our IntelliJ support?
Sure. So we do believe that we're releasing an additional update to the IntelliJ plugin. There's one that's going to come out in Q3. I'm still learning, so I need Tony and Sven to help me out here. But essentially, there will be additional capabilities that will make developer life easy. And two of them are listed here. The new tool windows for Bazel syncs and ability to debug Kotlin coroutines. What I want to just say is that these are new to me, so I'm still learning. But there would be quarterly updates of the IntelliJ plugin. So as IntelliJ updates its platform, the Google Bazel plugin team is very watchful and alert of those, and it's going to continuously try to support them. And we will keep the community updated as those releases are getting developed and announced and being released. Sven and Tony, do you want to add any more details to these two items? I'm not into the details yet.
Maybe one thing interesting for the crowd is that we have regular community meetings since a while. Actually, I think they're happening on a monthly basis. They are mostly driven by a partner team at Google and have been driven, and we're currently adding more support from our end as well. And so for those of you who are interested in IntelliJ in particular, how do you discover that meeting, actually? So we thought about turning it into a special interest group, like into a SIG, because then these kind of community meetings and efforts would be easier to discover via the SIG repository, the SIG. SIG sounds strange, right? SIG.
Yeah, usually, now you get, that's one of those I typically hear said SIG, and then it kind of throws you off for a while.
Okay.
We have had a lot more awkward things we've said out loud.
The SIG repository. I'm German. I'm having an excuse. What do I want to say? So making these kind of community efforts discoverable for people who are interested in a specific community. And maybe IntelliJ is a good example because we have a group of people who's meeting on a pretty regular basis. This is also where I believe, for example, the new tool window for Bazel syncs got already mentioned a couple of weeks ago. So that's maybe something we should consider, how to bring interested people to the party.
Bam, for 30 seconds while I answer this.
Go ahead.
I was just asking for a clarification from Norman, his question. So yeah, about that meeting, I blanked because I was doing the same thing, trying to figure out the discoverability of it. The next one is next Tuesday. That's what I was double checking. We can send to Bazel, discuss, just kind of send the reminder. I'm with you. I don't know how that one initially got sent out, but he brings up a good point on the SIGs. We have one right now, which you can find from the Bazel repository, the rule SIG. A lot of interested people here in terms of the different rule sets, trying to coordinate between them. They are looking to target specific bugs and different things to get addressed that they have particular interest in. So that is accessible from the Bazel site. We are looking to also create, wow, Thevi, you just caught me to it, creating the SIG for IntelliJ. So I'm just going to read her comment. There is the Slack channel. Going to be doing some quarterly updates, but again, we're looking to convert that into a SIG. The rule SIG is 6 months old, 7 months old, Sven. So it's a new initiative, but we're looking to build up that kind of community input, that kind of interest in particular areas. Jasmine, add Sven, or you're just on mute.
Just wanted to plus one. It's the I think the group which formed the rules SIG started meeting and forming earlier than the SIG got formalized. This also has been one of the motivators to find the SIG policy and think about how we can support user groups in future. And I think it got officially launched during or before BazelCon last year.
Gotcha. Anything, man, it's so weird being here. It's so like new, like it was not long ago. I'm like, yeah, it's before my time. So to Wayne and Nora's question, I can actually speak a bit to this one. We are working with, I like to use the word extolling too. Nice word. Where I'm working with a tech writer right now, and we're looking to begin with fix the. Wayne, you pun one more time, I'm going to find out how to block you from YouTube. It's been amazing this entire chat, and I love it. God, that completely threw me off here. The other one was, the chili one was actually pretty good too. They are going noticed. What was I talking about? Not SIG stocks. Okay, so working with our tech writing team to fix the high-level navigation first. We actually have quite a long plan out from that, but the first issue is to start with that top nav. And one of the things we talked about was the different personas that will come to it. And one of those is this CTO level, hey, why do I care about Bazel? We thought this was a good idea. There was the obvious personas of a new developer, the power user, and so forth. But we liked this idea. Having both of you mention that makes me very happy, justified. I actually need to go back and tell Lyra that we're in the right direction there. There is some material there that talks about it. It's just a bit all over the site. In particular, under, I think it's under contributing right now, there's a page called Bazel Users, and that talks about different people who are actually using Bazel, different companies, different projects that are using Bazel. Some of the stuff under basics, which I forget the top level now that you get to it, is actually some, it's interesting. It's a slightly technical, but it's also explanatory to your CTO over, hey, this is no longer scaling to a simple build system on my machine. We need to have a lot more flexibility. We need multi-language support. We need to have this kind of caching. There's a lot to it. So yes, Wade, by all means, don't take that personally. I love it. So we're looking to fix that messaging. So to finally answer that question, it's a bit scattered throughout the site. It is something we are looking to address very much more directly on bazel.build. So you can poke around stuff with that. You can ping me on Slack if you're looking for individual links. If you have ideas on, hey, this would be great that I need to show corporate, let me know, because we are very, very much open to what that looks like. So very happy for that. I see a lot of stuff going on in chat. SIG, there was the community Slack channel. There is a community Slack channel. It's also accessible from bazel.build under, I want to say, contributing again. You can find the link to that. There's the mailing list, and I think those are the kind of two big ones. There was an IDE question that zipped by. It was about IntelliJ plugin works for Android Studio. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, yeah, I'm almost positive that's correct. But Sven, just not.
Yeah, to my knowledge, we're publishing the updates for IDEA, C-Line, and other IntelliJ IDEs at the same time.
Cool.
But we wanted to confirm that in detail. Actually, I didn't look at the schedule. I know that the source for the various incarnation of IntelliJ IDEs is more or less the same. So it's plausible to assume that these updates go out at the same time.
Awesome. Would be great to see IDE support. SIG, okay, cool. So Max would like to see that SIG. That's awesome. I'm going to hold you to joining. Yes, so support for most non-IntelliJ IDEs is looking spotty. Here's where things get awkward as I put you on the spot, Sven or Tony. VS Code, I feel like I've heard it come up. Do we have anything we can say about it that you feel comfortable saying now, or no, don't bring it up?
Sven may know better than I. it's yeah, I'm not an IDE guy at all. So maybe it piggybacks off the IntelliJ work.
We're off the record, right? So
I could pause the recording if you would like.
no, it's so our focus is on IntelliJ currently, also because we have a strong IntelliJ user base within Google, and VS Code is a little bit more difficult as a story. I do believe that there's a community maintained VS Code integration driven by sales by one of the big community contributors. I'm not really sure about it. Maybe somebody of the community knows. But yeah, there are some, or was it Eclipse? It's not. So I think one of the things we should do with the community is also better understand, hey, beyond our current focus on improving IntelliJ and supporting IntelliJ updates on time, which was the main focus of our past year's work, right? To have an update of our plugin available when IntelliJ is updating their IDEs. Talking about which IDEs are important, which kind of language server functionality, but also maybe look at, hey, are there folks in the community who are invested into this and would like to make the Bazel world better? For the time being, our focus in the foreseeable future, to my knowledge, will be around the IntelliJ platform, supporting them better.
Thank you, Sven. And thank you for, who asked that one? I think it was Max. It made me very happy to make Sven and Tony uncomfortable. There's too much scripted content where they can come in prepared, and it's very fun throwing stuff at them on the fly. But it's also, this was really cool takeaway. We have people asking about VS Code. We have people asking about that corporate messaging. This is exactly what I want out of it, and exactly why I'm very glad the chat room is pretty wild, puns aside. But it's been valuable feedback for that. So we only have about 5 minutes left. I think we're going to start wrapping up at that. Like I said, we did have a few other topics that we can easily slide to the next one. One of the all right. So wait for it to come in. This is a fantastic question that I know from a doc's perspective. At least the first half of that, not necessarily the VS Code specific part, but the who is the target audience of Bazel. This is again going to put Sven or Tony, or even Radek, if you'd like to take a shot 2 weeks in, to quickly talk about kind of how you see it. Now, this is no real wrong answer to this type of thing. I mean, I've been running around Google asking this myself since I started, and everybody's got their own kind of spin on it. So Sven, let's put you on the spot again. Who do you consider the target audience of Bazel to be? I saw Tony nod because I picked, he knows he's going second. He has a chance to think about it.
Who are, like the question is, who are the typical or targeted users of Bazel as a build system, right? As of today, we have, Bazel is strong when it comes to builds that need to scale, cross-platform builds, or builds which try to build, think of like an Android app, an iOS app with a shared C++ library and the cloud backend, and you want to share code, reuse code functionality, or like work even, be it in the monorepo or not in the monorepo. I think it's this large scale builds. This is where we see the strongest point of Bazel for the time being. And I think one of the mental models I have in my mind are tech shops like Google, right? We have a lot of bigger user groups, customers from the tech world to begin with, also the financial world, self-driving, like autonomous car industry is a lot on Bazel. So I think these are the large projects, not the one where you just have a smaller app and it's unlikely that you start with Bazel. I don't know if this as of today, I don't know if this is answering the question, because I'm not really sure how to connect this to VS Code, because VS Code is gaining probably relevance across all kind of user groups, isn't it?
It is. And I actually kind of subverted that question to really just be that first half. I thought this made for this first one is made for an interesting kind of ending question. Tony, anything to add?
Sure. Yeah, I agree. It's when you have that complexity that drives you into Bazel. Imagine we're building the servers and the phone apps from the same code base, but then we build applications that are going to run on an emulator that's Linux-based, emulating and I'm compiling code for an ARM machine that I'm going to run in the test on a Linux machine through the emulator, and you've got to build for two different architectures in the same time. Bazel grows you into that fairly easily. So it generally tends to be people with complexity, and that tends to be large corporations. And that actually makes the choice of VS Code harder, because once you get to the large enough group, there is no one IDE that we can support. You end up having to be flexible to everyone, because you'll have people in that organization going, I will never leave Xcode. You'll have to pry it from my cold dead hands. And other people who are invested in VS Code, and other people who will never leave Emacs. And the organization adopting Bazel has to accommodate their developers. So for us to pick a winner is probably premature. We can work on what we have bandwidth for, but community support for the long tail of developer environments is needed and welcomed.
Maybe related to that, just to add on top of that, the question is like, we know the Google user base, right? Pretty well. It would be a shame if we would not know. We know which editors we're using. We know which platforms we're using for coding. We don't have so many insights into the smaller sized organizations using Bazel, or the larger ones only can make assumptions. Bazel is pretty great on Linux. It works on Mac. It works on Windows. Community feedback in the past told us that we're not showing a lot of visible love for Windows as a platform, for example. But then we also learned that there's a non-trivial amount of people using Windows as their production machine to code, right? So platform, IDE support, language support, it's a good question. What is on Google's roadmap, driven by Google's business needs, but on the other side also by the needs that we see that by the end of the day, the ecosystem needs to work, right? And the other question also, given that we have now more and more people working with the community on our end, is like, how can we make community ownership of certain parts of the ecosystem? How can we foster that? That, for example, somebody says, okay, yes, I will do Eclipse, or I will look into Python on Windows, if that's a thing. So Jason, not on the spot, but maybe you have ideas.
Look at that. We're actually at time. So I want to thank everyone. We came down to the exact minute, which we literally are, not dodging that question. Jeremy, the Slack thing, I will take a look at. If that invite, in particular, that link is being wonky, you can just go to the Slack team itself and join. I did that couple months ago, didn't have any problems with it. Thank you everyone to who came. Thank you everyone who participated in chat. This was a lot of fun for me. Like I said, it was a bit of a blur as I was kind of reeling in chat and stuff like that, but this is exactly what I'm hoping for. Please fill out that survey. One of the most important questions on there is, what do you want to see covered? Because it does me no good to come up here and talk about things that nobody cares about. So please fill that out. Let us know how we did. Like I said, let us know what you want to see more of, or feel free to ping me on chat directly if you want to talk about it. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. The next one, I'll send an email out, but it's going to be in roughly a month, same time. Assuming that survey doesn't show that a lot of people don't like this time frame. So we'll send that out, and the topic, when it gets a little bit closer, once I see the survey results for what people want to see, and once I conscript people into actually showing up, now that I've shown I have no problem making Sven's feel awkward, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So thank you, everyone. It was great talking to you, and I'll see you next time.